And we forget that this Iran negotiation is still happening to some extent. What kind of deadline is June 30th?
It's just like those Greek deadlines we were just talking about.
Is it really? I mean, is it a fluid deadline that doesn't really mean that much?
Well, yeah, the deadline was set by people who want to get the deal done. And if they can't get it done by June 30th, it'll take a little longer. I mean, one of the key architects of the Iranian nuclear negotiations actually has been in the hospital sideline for a couple of weeks. That slowed it down. There's also been a lot of posturing. There's still some substantive disagreements over things like inspections and things like how quickly they're going to be ramping down and how much in terms of the enriched uranium. And until you get those agreements, these sides want to get this done. No one wants to leave this negotiation and say we failed. Certainly not because of an arbitrary deadline of June 30. So I still am quite optimistic this is going to happen. But I'm very optimistic it happens after June 30. It's not going to happen before.
So it's a suggested deadline, even though it's the official deadline. The Iranian parliament passed a draft law banning Western access to military and security sites and to documents and to scientists. What's the significance of this bill, then?
Well, it's a draft law. And as you know, the United States president has moved pretty hard to try to get a deal done. And U.S. Congress has said, we're going to be much tougher than the president.
So this is the equivalent of that.
This is the Iranian parliament saying, well, if you've got a democracy where the Congress is going to be difficult, we can do that too. There's a lot of face being shown here. It is an issue that's relevant to them, but at the end of the day, the Americans and the P5+1, the permanent 5 countries plus Germany, that are negotiating here are not going to accept that there won't be inspections on Iranian military sites. That's ludicrous on its face. There's still a lot of discussions that have to be played here. But we're not going to see this bill as it is drafted is not going to be codified in law.
What happens to the oil market? Iran is already exporting 1.4 million barrels a day. They've already been increasing it. They're gaining market share in Asia. What happens to the oil market if there is a deal?
So one of the reasons this is a good deal for the United States is because within a year, certainly by the end of 2016, we will see 1 million additional barrels a day of production coming online from Iran. It's why America's ally, the Saudis, really don't want a deal. I don't blame them. But the problem is the Americans and the Saudis have very different interests on this and on many other things. And so the United States is pushing for something that is clearly an unmitigated good for the American economy. If the Iran deal happens, OPEC is effectively destroyed. It's already been marginalized.
Meaning that they don't have the kind of price control that they would have before, because they're not cutting production. They won't.
They won't.
Iran won't. Iraq won't.
Everyone trying to maintain their market share and influence. The Saudis are the ones that have the ability to do the most, but if no one else is going to join them, then why would they? If Iran comes on for another million, the Iraqis are probably producing another 700,000 barrels over the next year. This is despite the fact that ISIS controls about 22% of their territory right now, because they don't control where the oil is. And so, you know, as a consequence, this is clearly a bearish dynamic, and I don't think an Iran deal is priced into the markets yet.
You were talking about how President Obama wants a deal to get done. He's also lame duck president, so what kind of leverage does that give Iran?
Well, he's lame duck-ish. I mean, you know...
Not completely.
Well, I mean, in the sense that 2 years ago, it's not like he was having an easier time getting anything through. So, I mean, either you say he's been a lame duck for 5 years, or you say this is still important. Look, I mean, Congress has given him basically a free hand. They postured a lot. They want to say they're going to be tough, but at the end of the day, they have a couple months to review. It's more like a deal gets done by July 7th and later, because if it goes later, then the Congress gets a longer-term period to actually review the deal, which the Iranians, looking to get sanctions off, won't want. So there is actually a somewhat hard deadline coming up. It ain't June 30th.
Got it.
I don't think that Obama's status in terms of, you know, not going to be in office in a year and a half, I don't think that has any play at this point on the Iran deal.